Political leaders for special interest groups and civil society organizations operating in Greater Kabale district have asked government to establish civic education in schools, starting with the primary level, in order to increase participation in national elections. The call was made during a dialogue to discuss challenges faced by politicians and voters who belong to the special interest groups, such as people living with disabilities, youths, workers, and women councils at the local government level. The dialogue, named Mentorship Engagement Spaces for Duty Bearers and Rights Holders, was organized at Chirijime Guest House in Kabale by the African Youth Development Link, AYDL, in partnership with Local Sustainable Communities, LOSCO, both non-governmental organizations involved in advocacy for human rights in Central and Western Uganda. A report by AYDL indicated that the quality of 2001, 2006, 2011, 2016, and 2021 elections is cited to have adversely affected citizens' interest and participation in the country's democratic development. For instance, in 2016, the report says that 4,948,067, which is 32.4% Ugandans, did not vote, while in 2021, the number grew up to 7,744,124, which is 42.8%. Among the issues raised by the participants as causes of less participation was lack of enough civic education that led to a number of challenges such as commercialized elections, which discouraged low-income earners from contesting, and increased voter bribery, which implied that participation of voters only depended on availability of money. The Kabale District Returning Officer Haj Nadori Ahmad Musisi said that voters, especially PWDs, did not participate in the previous elections on grounds of financial constraints, long distance to the polling stations, among others.
Parties are supposed to be sponsoring the candidates, and I think it should be recommended that these parties either waive at the party level so that people come up to get the best candidate, and then they also sponsor those candidates when they go to stand in the general election at sub-county or district level. Nomination fees should be paid by the party. I think that is sponsorship, really. Sponsorship should not only be offering of support and mobilization, but it should also include the payment of nomination fees and campaign monies of all other sorts. The known functions of committees, I urge you members, for every marginalized group that has been created with committees and leadership positions, there is a relevant law. For example, there is the Persons with Disabilities Act, the Youth Act, the Women Councils Elections Act, and here the functions are well spelled out. Get the Persons with Disability Act, get the Youth Act, get the Women Councils Elections Act, so that you know. Their functions are given there and they are there. Except also we may recommend in this dialogue that there should be deliberate effort to induct the elected leaders into these functions of the committees for which they are being elected. I don't know who should be taking that up, but maybe that would be either the local government or NGOs or NUDIPO. Maybe, I think NUDIPO actually. You would be inducting these people. Tell them they should know what they are why they are elected, how they are supposed to be facilitated, what they are supposed to be doing. Voter educate, civic educate, we can publicize our activities. And the local leadership can help in this also. In the whole network, because we've involved the leaders. We had the regional workshop in Mbarara. We had the RDC, the COW, the head of police, the women leaders, the youth leaders. These, after coming from such workshops, should be passing on this information to the relevant committees up to village level. So when you say none of you has heard, then I would be surprised. Even the PWD chairperson was there. So it's not entirely the commission to blame, but even when we intervene, sometimes your leadership maybe does not adequately pass on the information.
Eunice Nyamuhachi and Betty Amasiko, Kabale District LC5 female councillors representing people living with disabilities and workers respectively, narrated the hardships they went through during the 2021 campaigns, citing demand for money and sexual favors from voters and campaign agents. The duo asked for increased civic education for quality participation in elections.
Challenge yo kubanza imwe nabugine kashanga ngu abatezi bakarura binji bakazo mu system yo kumanya ngo yaza kutera karuru hinakora abanze wamuha so kimanyisa wabo utagizire ku wamuha akaruni kabasa kukurema kandi oyine capabilities oyine cyo kubasa kubakorera kikabagashara kukiza nezo sete ezo wabahereza chi civic education ebonerire no kugira ngo abantu bayegesebwa kumanya responsibility yabo na munonga umukutora na leaders bakamanya ngo tubare kuzakoresha sente ngo babagure tuza kubona mu capable leaders abaraze omu leadership bari kumanya cyo gukora bari kumango nibatekwa kugira cyo bakorera abantu babo ababatiremu na bwanyuma kutamu yabo yabaneho bagarukire bije bine cyo kwereka abantu ababatiro mu ntebeje omanya omwana yaba ryo mwana waza kumutuma ukajya ngo roko ngutume haza wijani kwa sweet ochaza kumutuma turoko ngutume haza wijani kwa sweet na amanyira wa mutumo tamu promise ngire sweet obumwe na yanga ninga yaka estamire nkaratagira iki yagira iki yakora okuba buri kumutuma no mu promise nga sweet so ekintu cyarwo mu bwana omwana akamanya ati omuntu yantuma ninjenda nkore ki yantuma ntari ku expecting ngo agire ki yabanza yantugira ninga yampereza leadership netandiko mu bwana we need ku traininga abana bitu okuba responsible so abana bakuri romwe noza kushangana bayika omu kuselectinga leaders baba ikizo mu myaka yo kuselectinga leaders ari kumanya ati li ogumuntu wisha katuganira kanyereka ecari kwenda kunkolera tinshemere kubanza nagire kina namushaba nkesete ngumbonde kumuterera karuru uwa noronda karuru kabuga n'abantu umuntu nakwereka mu mirata hampashi nyabuninga shisebono hagamba hoki ubwa kamanyira ubu biri so nani ntero muranga okugira ngo nangwa nabari kuba batacari bana twabire bakuru twongere kwegesibwa okumanya ngo leaders abo turi kuselectinga kuza omu government okutwebembera ningashobo okuturepresentinga tushemerere kureba ebiborekerere kutukolera tukabiweyinga tukareba ya turi kuza kubenefitingamu twareba birimo muramwa tumanye ngo umuntu ni oba inesete oba tazini.
Mr. Dennis Warinda, a research assistant at Kick Corruption out of Uganda, KQ, an NGO operating in Kigezi region, proposed that government should establish civic education in primary and secondary school curriculums in order to teach the young Ugandans on their civic duty before they clock 18 years, the age at which voting begins.
Encourage children to be good leaders, and we inspire them to be future good leaders, but we are not actually preparing these children to be so. That's why there is a discrepancy or a mismatch between what actually should be and what actually is being done in Uganda today. I want to tell you that, like other countries, even before we got independence, we had no serious cause as Uganda. That's why we are detached from the common cause. And therefore, people are not focused on one single building in this country. So that's why we say that focusing on a child would enable the child to grow knowing what he or she is supposed to do. For instance, as a country, we have common values that we must all cherish as a country. But are children aware of this? Are leaders aware of this? Are even other stakeholders aware of this? Are they cultured or inculcated in their value system, in the way they behave and in whatever they are doing, even in government policy development and whatever? Are they aligning them with the directives? That's why there is a problem. There is a problem. The issue of manifesto fails because if we want to design a manifesto, you must feed it in the policy and also in the laws. Then you know your limits, where you should perform, where you are not able to deliver, so that you don't deceive the public within your mandates. But are people aware of that? That's why there is a problem. They just join the thing, the race without the proper direction. Why they mess and end up using other means to enter the money and all that. If you don't know what somebody is supposed to do, then you will force him to do what you ought to have, what you want him to have done, which is actually different. Because, for example, the electors may think that it is the role of the council to construct a road, but is it the mandate?
The Law's Core Executive Director Albert Tarema and Ivan Otim from the AYDL concurred with the proposal to have civic education included in the school curriculums.
We believe that the issues that are in a mismatch either have a responsibility on either side. So it's upon us to bring that responsibility in context so that we can see how we can be able to put issues that affect whatever conversation we're talking about. So we have been doing and we continue to do a lot of these community engagements, and in particular we're trying to reach out to hard-to-reach districts like Kanungu. We're talking about an election where citizens must be able to know that elections matter. Elections is where citizens have the mandate to choose leaders who have the responsibility to undertake issues that affect them. So we see that there are limitations in the regards of how elections have been organized, from the basis of the mainstream elections, but also the electoral college elections. So we are here to gather those views that will inform our national advocacy engagement, our advocacy framework on issues, for example, that have hindered participation of persons with disability. And the issues that have emerged from this meeting are enormous, and the idea is that we can carry these issues to our national platform. One of the issues that has come out is the issue around the representation of persons with disability. There is a disconnect between the electoral college for the youth and maybe now the elderly, and now we see that the representation of persons with disabilities in Parliament has no regional balance. So the issues that have been raised here will help us form a national engagement. But also within the voting practices, the exclusion of material, the exclusion of voter civic education material is one way that we must be able to find a short-term mechanism as a country, and it is through advocacy that we can be able to do this.
My name is Tarema Albert. I'm the Executive Director for Local Sustainable Communities Organization, an organization that works around human rights advocacy in Kigezi. We are looking at the challenges they face during the electoral process. And we realized that there was a big need in the electoral processes, and the most outstanding one was lack of voter education and limited civic education. And we realized that this is a great need and a gap that we unanimously agreed that was existing in both the electoral processes and also the government systems. So people do not turn up to vote. They do not turn up to participate in the electoral processes, not because they don't want, but because they don't know.
Meanwhile, leaders of the people living with disabilities from Kabale district demanded for an amendment in the policy that guides election of members of parliament and called for regional representation, whereby people living with disabilities and workers MPs would be chosen from all the regions that make up Uganda.
Yes, twina bebembese ababalema kunka ekizibawo kirina abarema ne tupresentinga our issues konga kuja bazigaweka mu kibetago vuba tuyebusa no twaturi kuza tuyikonda ba leaders kuza tushwesera hajyaro hamiruka sub county nka tukashasta kutunga na kezi egetengwe bitwa presentinga ni kireta kikushanka twine ba leaders from level 1 up to level 5 niyebusa ni habwasi kandi nagene tsini nituburala na kezi sensitization mu barema akuba washanke bitubikuzenda mwesho kunguko shanga tutakubimanya ninga nabana nkezi abantu bakutura mutsabatine tsibakumanya nobo kwishabaje babasensitizing nageti bakuzareka babagambira natsushanga ngo abana satubura muraro kushanga tuyikuzane tweka tweshumbe mu bururu akuba tine tsiranga sire kushanga ne kuzareka nyeshumbire umugwebembera kandi issues abana bikuzenda kababuza ataje bazazi etsibazibe
Naboth Isaac Niwagaba, Real Impact TV.